Today's story takes us to a cold December in Skidmore, Missouri, a place forever marked by one of the most chilling crimes in American history. A young mother's life ended, a baby was ripped from the womb, and the woman responsible was the first female federal inmate executed in nearly 70 years. This is the case of Lisa Montgomery and the murder of Bobbie Jo Stinnett. On December 16, 2004, 23-year-old Bobbie Jo Stinnett was found strangled to death inside her home in Skidmore, Missouri. She had been 8 months pregnant. Her unborn baby, Victoria Jo Stinnett, had been stabbed and cut from her mother's womb. But by a miracle, Victoria survived. She was raised by her father without ever knowing the mother who died bringing her into the world. Bobbie's body was transported to the Jackson County Medical Examiner's office in Kansas City for examination. The brutality of the crime shocked the entire nation. Just days later, hundreds braved the bitter cold to attend Bobbie Jo's funeral. On December 21st, mourners packed the Price Funeral Home in Bearsville, Missouri. The Reverend Harold Hammond, who had married Bobbie and her husband a year before, presided over the service. A silver and wood casket lay draped with lilies. Some mourners wept. One woman fainted. Many stood outside as cars lined nearby streets for over a mile. The burial took place at the Hillcrest Cemetery in Skidmore, followed by a reception where grief turned into a quiet solidarity. Meanwhile, Lisa Montgomery, the woman behind this horrific crime, was tracked down by the FBI the very next day. They found her holding the newborn on the front porch of her Malvern, Kansas home, deep in the countryside. She was taken to the FBI Kansas City field office where she confessed. From there, she was booked into the Cass County Jail in Harrisonville, Missouri. Lisa first appeared in court on December 28, 2004, 2 days after Kwanzaa started, before Magistrate John Malmer in Skidmore's federal court. She was ordered to remain behind bars without bond as the investigation continued. At the time, she was assigned public defender Anita Burns, who later stepped down, believing that Lisa's mental health history justified an insanity defense. Lisa Montgomery was quickly tied to a federal probe within the Western District of Missouri. Prosecutor Matt Whitworth vowed to bring this probe before a grand jury at that Skidmore federal court. This grand jury went on to indict her on a single grave charge, kidnapping resulting in death, a federal capital offense. Whitworth unsealed the indictment and formally announced that the government would seek the death penalty. Before Judge Gary Finner, Montgomery pleaded not guilty. After Anita Burns resigned, Lisa was represented by a team of 5 public defenders: David Owen, Judy Clark, Susan Hunt, John O'Connor, and Fred Duchart. Together, they changed her plea to not guilty by reason of insanity. On the other side, 2 more prosecutors joined their team: Assistant U.S. Attorney Roshan Ketchmark and Attorney General Albert Gonzalez, the U.S. Attorney General, who was in the cabinet of then President George W. Bush. Their mission was to prove that Lisa Montgomery was sane and deserved execution. Her trial began on August 1st, 2007, before a jury of 12 members and 4 alternates. The defense laid out Montgomery's brutal life growing up, her history of trauma, and her delusions, arguing that she suffered from a rare condition where a woman believes she is pregnant. It's called pseudopsoriasis, but that was not enough. On October 22nd, the jury found her guilty. 4 days later, on October 26th, just before Halloween and Diwali and Day of the Dead, they recommended a death sentence. Judge Fenner upheld it immediately, officially sending Lisa Montgomery to death row. Montgomery appealed. A new legal defense team came to help her. Public defenders Kelly Henry, Amy Harwell, Lisa Nowry, Christine Bledgen, and Sandra Babcock. They argued ineffective counsel, brain damage, and severe mental illness, but prosecutors Brian Casey, Brenton Hurst, David Wagner, and Alan Simpson stood firm. The Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals, the federal appeals court in St. Louis, Missouri, refused to grant her a new trial, not for the guilt phase and not for the sentencing phase. So did Judge Fenner. He refused to modify the case in any way. Her last hope was the U.S. Supreme Court, but it too declined to hear the case twice. Once in 2012 and again in January 2021, just hours before her scheduled execution. President Donald Trump refused to pardon nor commute her sentence. However, he did delay her execution in order to make the correct decision of what to do. No appellate body, no judge, no panel, no president stepped in to save her. Lisa Montgomery spent her final years on death row at the Terre Haute Federal Penitentiary in Indiana. This is the same facility where Timothy McVeigh and Brandon Bernard were executed. In the early hours of January 13th, 2021, she was executed by lethal injection. President Donald Trump gave the facility permission to put her down. Before dying, she said no. She was stubborn and died remorseless. Her body was transported to the Mattox Ryan Funeral Home in North Terre Haute. They cremated her and gave the ashes over to her defense team. A mother murdered, a newborn orphaned, and a nation divided by trauma, by justice, and by the question, what do we do when the killer is also a victim? This was the case of Lisa Montgomery, the only woman on federal death row and the first to be executed in the United States in nearly 7 decades. This is Strawberry Inc. I'm your host Santiago, and we'll see you next time. May those affected rest in peace. Have a good rest of your day.